Hey guys, my name is VaulSC, hope that you are doing well. In this video I'm going to take you through a Conquest Last Argument of Kings bat rep between the Wadroon, the Orcs, and the Dinosaurs, and against the 100 Kingdoms with me playing as that faction, my fave, my homeboys, the 100 Kingdoms. And I've got to tell you, last weekend we played this game at the Game Day event in Auckland where we're just growing as a Conquest scene. There was about 6 of us showing up with, freshly painted miniatures for our armies, and I've got to say it was one of the best experiences I had playing tabletop war games in many, many, many years. I've been at this for well over 20 years now, and over the last 8 years, obviously Infinity's been great, but getting a little bit dry, and it just feels really good to get into a new tabletop war game. The system itself is attracting some really good people. The miniatures are amazing, and the games themselves are extremely fun. So I'm going to take you through this game that I played today. There were actually 2 of them, so there was one before lunch, one after lunch, and this is the first one that I did against my buddy Hayden, and always a pleasure to play the guy. He is our hype man for the community, and he's doing a wonderful job bringing new people into the hobby too, which I definitely appreciate. So without too much further ado, let's just jump into the army lists. And I gotta tell you, after doing a few bat reps for 100 Kingdoms on my YouTube channel, it's finally great to kick off the trainer wheels and play something which is a little bit more focused on stuff that I'm interested in trying, as opposed to just running the starter box, starter kit stuff. So we've dispensed with the Noble Lord on foot, and we're now taking the meta, the ubiquitous Imperial Officer, the best warlord for 100 Kingdoms, because this guy is he is a character that, first of all, has a really amazing supremacy ability. He gives all of your infantry Vanguard, which doesn't seem like a good ability when you're new to the game. Like, if you're casual and experienced, you don't really understand the game very much, it doesn't seem very useful. It's just one extra move when you come onto the table. But as you become more accustomed to the game and more familiar, you start to get the feel for tempo and how quickly units need to be involved in the game and getting near to objectives, and Vanguard really changes that. So that's one reason why he's amazing. Of course, the other reason why the Imperial Officer is really, really good is because of his warband, and he has access to just some really good quality troops. So in this instance, I'm running the crossbowmen. Most people just use a lot of these because they are really cheap. They allow you access to the restricted units, and if your opponent ignores them, you've got the volley 2 AP shots just turn after turn after turn, and they end up getting more damage than they should really be paying their points for. But if your opponent really tries to focus on them, then they're used as a screening unit for your bigger stuff behind. So extremely popular and efficient unit for 100 Kingdoms. I'm running the slightly more expensive Imperial Ranger Corps. I have fallen in love with these guys recently because of fluid formation. Obviously on paper it seems really good, but in practice it's been even more powerful because I've been able to combine it with the movement shenanigans of the Imperial Officer, because he comes with some free stuff. That's another reason why I like him, is just he's super cheap. So double time allows you to turn around with your Ranger Corps, use liquid formation, and it's honestly, it's pretty crazy. So liquid formation can just completely change your direction and your formation, and then you can march 3 times 15 inches plus the standard if you have it for 16, and that allows you to completely remove your troops from combat, meaning that they don't get charged, or you can completely bring them back into the combat, or you can move up to a spot where you're going to shoot close range next turn. But very importantly, it can also allow you to cross from one side of the table to another in record time and get the Imperial Officer, who's a medium trooper, onto the objective, which I personally find to be insane. Now, the Steel Legion, I don't think this is actually what I took on my list. I've actually shown you guys the wrong version. I'm running the Gilded Legion for this game, sorry. So, I can't remember if this is the right list or not, but the Gilded Legion are there because I want to use my Household Guard model, so that's one reason why they're involved. These guys have pike formation, which means that they are really good against, other 100 Kingdom armies which are cavalry focused. They're good against Thunder Riders, they're good against Cataphractoi, and they're good against Centaur Avatara. So a lot of things that you see in the meta, they're very helpful at. I'll be the first to admit that Steel Legion are better, just because, you know, in this particular game is quite a lot about cleave, and they have better cleave, and Oblivious makes them really powerful and more attacks. But Guild Legion, you know, more appropriate for me at the moment because my miniatures are set up, so I've got the Household Garden models. So this points here isn't accurate. I must have run something else in this sort of little game day list that I haven't included here. I think that my Chapter Mage had some additional stuff. Anyway, Priority Commander, Order of the Crimson Tower, and Order of the Ashen Dawn. As I always take, the Crimson Towers, I'm getting really sick of these guys. They're so flimsy. So I'm painting up some proxies for Order of the Sword. I'm so excited to show them to you. We'll be seeing that soon. Theos Priest, just the same thing that I always run here. For this game, I can't remember whether I put focused on on the Priest or on the Mage. I know one of them had it. And of course, my brand new Men-at-Arms I'm painting up. I think that these guys are kind of underrated. They seemed like they were really bland when I first started studying 100 Kingdoms, but the more I thought about it, the more useful they are at actually protecting a character like the Mage to actually use her gun and her fireball. And secondarily, they are the cheapest way to get scoring units onto the table, being the absolute cheapest medium unit in the game. So they're very inexpensive to include, and they can get up to defense 4, which is no joke. Like, that's actually a really serious thing in this game at the moment. So being able to just hold off your opponent for a couple of turns while your mage gets a little bit of damage, and the rest of your army can come in onto the flank or shoot into combat, makes a huge difference. So that's something that I'm wanting to experiment with a bit more. So yeah, I can't quite remember what I was actually putting in this list to make it to 2,000 points, but this is not the list that I ran. We'll probably figure it out during the game. Anyway, my opponent ran something like this. I didn't actually ask him to send them the list text, so I've just approximated what he ran. He's trying out the Thunder Chieftain, Thunder Riders with the War Cult. I recommended this to him. I think the War Cult is a nice forgiving cult. Because war is all about kind of like defense. Like, you get up to tier 3, you get blessed, but at tier 1 you've got +1 defense, and it's just very useful no matter what stage of the turn you are, because, well, unless you're right at the end, because you can charge in with it activated, then your opponent can attack later, or you can put yourself in the way of taking damage. But some of the higher tiers of the cult give you some things which can be used offensively, and of course tier 3 gives you Blessed as well, which can be used for your attack rolls or defense rolls. Getting to tier 3, of course, requires that you have Mantle of the Devoted. I personally think that this item is in need of a little bit of a nerf. Fanatic on any unit you really want is just a bit extreme when you add it to the Thunder Riders or to the Tontor. It's fine if you put it with some Blooded or something like that, or Hunters, but when you get it on the absolute best of the best troops, you're capable of some stuff which is just a bit nutty. Aberration Blooded, pretty common, gives them lethal demise. Sign of Conquest with 1 Chosen of Conquest, they're already Fanatics, so these guys get to go like March 8 and then charge another 6 and then you know, cleave anyway, clash anyway. So the reason why I don't find these guys to be overpowered is they're a little bit predictable, and also they don't pump out quite the same amount of damage that Thunder Riders and Tontors do. So they're a little bit more manageable. But once you get the Mantle onto the Thunder Riders or to the Tontor, it just gets a bit extreme. So I hope that item does get a little bit nerfed. And then the Predator group just has all of the light stuff. Just my opponent bringing as many painted models as he can to game day and getting it done. So before we jump into the actual game, we've got the mission. It's Off Balance. It's one of my favorite ones. It's nice and simple. These two zones are extremely far apart. So your army is going to be split, and you have to be careful about how committed you are to each side. But if you stay back in your KG, there are 2 objectives, one sort of close to the middle, one further into the back, that, you know, your opponents are defending. So if it comes down to a bit of a tiebreaker situation, you can shoot for those objectives because they're worth 4 points, which makes a big difference. Alrighty, so this is game day. There's my opponent there. He's pretending to be a T-Rex, and he's doing a pretty good job of it, just getting his army set up. And that's the table we're playing on, so you can see the off-center scenario right here if I just point that out. So obviously there's a big zone there, and then another zone over here, and these little objectives, you are trying to kill the one on your opponent's side. So my opponent's sitting up here, and he's going to be going for that one there, and that one up there. Okay, so game day we have Chris and Ben and Matt all setting up for their games, and just want to talk about my new command stack. You guys might have seen this on Reddit and on Discord. So I have 3D, not 3D printed. I have used Midjourney to make some AI art, which I put into Photoshop and put a little scroll background and just typed some text onto it. Then I got a local printer to print out some like 350 GSM card, and I just cut them out with a pair of scissors and put them into some Magic the Gathering card sleeves, and you get this. So it just makes my experience feel a bit more unique. Obviously, Parabellum's art for the cards are really, really good. Like, not to take away from those, but it's just kind of fun to have a unique sort of set of art cards here. Probably the most time-consuming about this is actually re-rolling the art generation on Midjourney, just because it takes quite a while for it to come up with images that are sort of appropriate for any of the concepts you want to use. Also, the AI has a real difficulty drawing weapons and hands holding weapons. It doesn't quite get them right. You can sort of see the spears for the militia have this sort of weird kink in them. It always does that for some reason because it's probably referencing some weird version of a spear from somewhere. So what I try and do is I use the banners to sort of cover up parts where they're holding weapons and stuff, and there's a card where there's like mercenaries, but they're counting coins at a table rather than holding crossbows because the AI just can't draw them. So anyway, my opponent showing up in the first turn with a few hunters and his predator, and also some raptor riders. It looks like some of their weapons are broken off, but love the paint job, love the colors. I'm coming on with my mercenaries, as you can see there, the AI card art. You've got the mercenaries counting the coins they're going to be paid if they survive this battle. And hunting pack as well, the little dinos. I'm a big fan of this unit because they are very fast and they're very cheap, and they allow the rest of your points to be spent on all of the other awesome Wadroon stuff. And liquid formation makes them very dangerous because they are also opportunists. So if they can find a way into your flank, they're going to do mass damage. My Hunter Cadre are also light, and they're due for a bit more paint, but I'm very happy with how the bases are turning out because the bases are an extremely easy job of painting a dark brown over, under the layer, painting dark brown and then painting like a orangey brown ochre, and then just gluing on little shrubs and static grass and stuff, which is so easy to do. But you know, it is just like even a very small child could achieve the base result you're seeing here. So I encourage anybody who is not that great at hobbying and wargaming and that sort of miniature preparation to just follow that kind of strategy really with your basing, because it totally enhances your miniatures for a rank and flank medieval style game like this, fantasy style game, and it's so easy. So you can see the gun line in turn one. I'm bringing on the rangers to the right with the Imperial officer in the middle, and then the mercenaries in the middle, and then to the left is the Hunter Cadre. My opponent's going for the extreme right-hand flank with the what do you call those guys? The Raptor Riders, I believe they're called. Indeed, that is true. And then there's the hunting pack way over to the left there, and the Predator and his hunters there. So that's what we're seeing. Now, also bringing on the militia with his little light regiment of spearmen, and the priest himself is a medium unit, so the strategy is to just get him to that objective as soon as I can and score, bearing in mind that the peasants aren't really helping him to score. He's only going to be one stand, so as soon as my opponent has at least one stand or more nearby, I won't be able to do it because he'll be contesting me. Turn two, we have the mage appearing, and she's going to be coming on last. So the reason why she's at the bottom of my stack here is because what I want to do is to wait to see if he moves any of his troops into my half of the table. Like if he rushes to outflank me with his Raptor Riders, the men-at-arms show up opposite them, and then the mage hits them with a gun and a fireball. This is one piece of strategy I'm starting to learn about Conquest Last Argument, is that although it's super tempting to put your light infantry and your speedy stuff right into the enemy's grill in the first couple of turns, it's actually not a smart idea, because if you race over there by using your massive march ability and your speed, they can actually bring their reinforcements around to surround you and get in range of spells and magic, and that's just a waste of your really awesomely fast unit, which is probably quite expensive. So if you're a player that enjoys units like Raptor Riders, Mounted Squires, Hunting Pack, anything like that. Don't just rush it into your opponent's grill like in the first 2 turns. Keep it back behind your line. And what you want to do is you want to wait until their units are preoccupied with your units, and then you sneak past them when they can't afford to turn around and deal with you. And that's an amazing use of a quick unit, especially one that has fluid formation. Hopefully that makes sense. So, back to the game. This is it after turn 1, so all of my light stuff's appeared, militia to the far left. We then have the Imperial officers just hanging out, and the Hunter Cadre have shot a few arrows onto this objective to the left here. We have some blooded showing up behind the hunting pack, and then my Imperial officer, because he's using double time and the Rangers are using liquid formation, they are able to just form up into this little box and move him into the zone. And that's important because I can now start scoring. And the Raptor Riders kind of like, there's a building between me and the Raptor Riders, just making sure you guys can see what I'm talking about. That is the Raptor Riders up behind that building there. This is the zone, which is, you know, centered towards that point, and the Imperial officer is right here. So if he wants to come at me, he's going to have to come around the flank, and I've got other things to protect. For example, the aforementioned mage and her men-at-arms. And if he just comes back around the other way, I don't think he can charge immediately. And I've got other units like the crossbowmen which can shoot into close combat and wear him down. So I feel like this is a good chance to steal a few points. So the Thunder Riders do attempt to move around, and they do attempt to shoot me, but they can't really quite manage it. So they're just having to sort of hang back a little bit. Over here, the crossbowmen, the mercenary crossbowmen, also trying to move up. Cavalry is taller than infantry, so they're able to shoot over top of the Rangers, but unfortunately, just not quite in range. They were almost there, but not quite. And you can actually see 3 wounds inflicted on the Ranger unit from the Raptor Riders, already taking damage. On the left-hand flank, we're still talking about the Raptor Riders here. Another unit of blood are showing up behind them. They clearly intend to... Oh, let me just go back to that. Excuse me. I've lost my thingy there. Alright, where were we? So we were talking about this. There's a unit of blooded which show up on the extreme left-hand side, and this is for them to go around the house. If I can just grab this. So they're going to be going around there, and I feel like that might not be the best play because I'm still able to move in units to block them off, and I can choose what to bring on to stop them. So I feel like they're going to be a little bit slow going around that way. This is a combat unit that's usually best going through the middle of the table, either acting as a screen for something else or something else is screening this unit so they can get in and do the maximum damage, is sort of my feeling with them. So the counterplay here is to move up with the men-at-arms, and you can see that the blooded are slowly going to come down the side. They're going to get shot at by the mage and fireballed by her. So by the time they get into combat, I'm expecting him to only have a couple stands, which means that defense for men-at-arms with Bastion should be able to like block the brunt of their attacks. And although the blooded have lethal demise, again, defense 4 is, you know, the higher defense you have, the better you have a chance of withstanding the lethal demise explosions. And these guys should be well positioned to fend them off. Through the middle, his hunters continuing to move up. Look at their expressions. They just really want to throw their spears. And he's going to be going for the objective on my side of the table, eventually trying to sort of fight me for it. The Theist Priest. I love this little card out here from Midjourney. It has, you know, he's just basically got into position. He's putting out Blessed onto the militia in case they need it. And they're going to be dealing with the hunting pack very shortly to basically try to fight for this little objective. But things looking quite perilous for the militia because there is, if I just point this out using the pointer thingy, that is the hunters up there, and you've got the hunting pack right here, and more blooded are on the way. So I've just got one puny little militia. This guy does have his magic fireball though, so if he has enough time, he should be able to deal with a few enemies, but if they all come at him at once, we'll probably lose the militia and we'll have to commit something else to taking this side of the table. Anyway, moving up, I'm hoping that he attacks in the front with the hunting pack because then I can deal with them fairly quickly, either the fireball or the militia themselves, and then hopefully destroy them before the blooded show up. And I might even have one turn with the scoring to go off of there. So in this next turn, I believe this is turn 3, The Crimson Tower will be arriving, but I want them to come on last because I need to sort of see how things are going on the left flank. If you look at the zoom out at the end of that turn, you've got the militia on the extreme left-hand side, and I'm feeling like the Crimson Tower can come up behind them, and then after the militia have been wiped out by the Blooded and the Hunting Pack and the Hunters, the Crimson Tower can charge whatever's left and start scoring. Potentially, though, I may need to move through the middle and deal with the Thunder Riders, or move through the right and respond to some other threat if he brings in the Apex, Predator to that side. So they want to be last, just because they're a pretty important unit. They're very flimsy. They pack a punch when they first charge in, but as soon as they're embroiled in combat, they kind of fall apart. So I want to be careful about where to bring them on. So in the front of the stack, although you can't see the card art very clearly, I mean, I've spent a lot of time with it, so I know what it is. You've got the Rangers first, and then the Fierce Priests, and then the Hunter Cadre, and then the Mercenaries, and the Men-at-Arms, etc., etc. So let's just have a look at how it goes. So I'm also in a little bit of danger here because the Raptor Riders could potentially charge my Rangers, and the Rangers are very bad in close combat. So with that in mind, luckily I managed to win the Supremacy roll, and they use Liquid Formation to turn around and then a double time to march all the way out of there, keeping them completely safe, which, keeps a Warlord alive, which is good, and it keeps a perfectly good ranged unit alive, and they've suffered 3 wounds already. So it's just a great chance to bring them back in the game later and show you guys just how amazing Liquid Formation and double time actually is. It's very, very good. Just a quick side point. I did play a game with these guys a while back when I had played my first game, where I thought that they were movement 6, but the Imperial Officer slows them down because the unit always moves at the speed of the slowest unit, which is the character, so just bear that in mind if you're going to be trying that strat. So, Homeboy here moving his hunters further across the table, getting towards my Hunter Cadre, and then over this side, the militia are activating first and just putting up Bastion. They don't really want to get out of position because they could get charged in the flank, so just hanging out, putting up Bastion, and now they're going to be Defense 3, which is great. Sorry, they don't actually have Bastion. What's going on here is that the Mage, the Fierce Priest, I should say, is casting the spell that raises the defense by 1. So it's like Bastion, but it isn't literally the Bastion rule. It's the Fierce Priest spell that gives you +1 defense is what I'm using there. Okay, Hunters in position, but the Hunter Cadre are shooting back at them with some arrows, and now it's just a bit of a firefight. It's a shootout, and we're all fighting over this one objective here, and of course the shooting units, they can't damage each other that quickly. His guys have got 5 wounds each, my guys have got evasion 2, so we're not dying immediately, but it is starting to get bloody. So he shot at me using fire at advance, just coming close to this console. I can't actually charge him because you're not allowed to end your movement on top of this objective, which is really interesting. The Hunter Cadre are slightly better in combat than they are at shooting, so I'd love to charge him, but that objective will block me from getting all of the contact with my stands. So they are shooting instead, and they are able to shoot, and probably take out 1 stand if I recall correctly. But yeah, I do need to get a little bit more paint on these guys. Can't wait to have that happen because I imagine myself to be using these miniatures a lot in future because I really enjoy them. Now, the Raptor Riders are in a little bit of trouble here because they have started taking a bit of damage. The crossbows are in the distance, they're shooting at them. The officer and the rangers have run away from them. The zone is open, and on the other side of the house there is a mage. So these guys are in a little bit of trouble. They are looking at these crossbowmen rather hungrily and thinking that their raptors haven't been fed in a while, so they do want to go for a bit of a charge at some point. Speaking of being hungry, the Hunting Pack charged directly into the front of the militia. Now, these guys are very good in the flank and the rear because of opportunists when they get rerolls, but when they're just straight up in the front, their clash is rather low. So the Chief isn't on the board yet. I don't think they get shock. They would get inspired. They've got 6 attacks, but they're going to miss with most of those attacks, and the militia are defense 3 in this point, so they're going to block half of the attacks, and their resolve's pretty good with the Servite being in there and the unit size being quite high, so not too many casualties. Over here, the Mage and the militia, the Men-at-Arms, just repositioning a little bit, and let's just get technical about this. This can be a little bit abusive sometimes, but when you have a building here, you can sort of move across a little bit and artificially make it harder for your opponent to charge with the full frontal. They can still charge in the front, but they're going to have a stand in here and another stand in here, and there's going to be at least one stand overhanging. And when this unit does 6 attacks, you're at least preventing some of the damage from that unit, and the building's going to stop them from getting in there. And for me, I've got Relentless Drill, so all of my back guys have got 2 support attacks each, so this sort of setup really benefits me. And the mage herself can also just get a line pass through there. I might have to get a different color with her spells, so she can continue to fireball them. And from the position here, she can also fireball this direction as well. So if the Raptor Riders are going to be coming through here onto the Militia Bowman, Militia Crossbows, the Mercenary Crossbow is what I meant to say, she has an angle there as well. So that's sort of the strategy. The Blooded move in behind the Hunting Pack, and as you can see, I have lost 2 stands of Militia because the Hunting Pack did some damage, but they're also blocking the Blooded from getting into combat with me, so I now have a bit more time to arrive with the Crimson Tower Knight, so that is looking really good. On this side of the table, the Blooded again moving ever closer, but not into close combat yet, and that'll give me a chance to possibly pound them with a fireball or something like that. We have the Apex Predator arriving on the table, just going towards the middle of the table, but leaning a little bit more closely to the Militia over here with their spears, just in case they manage to fend off the Hunting Pack. The big Dino can eat the rest of them, but the Dino is quite fast, so what he could do, and I honestly quite like this positioning here from my opponent, is that he can sort of hang around this part of the field here, and if he really needs to divert his attention to those guys, he can, but otherwise he's going to be able to support through there. And at the moment, most of my stuff is on this side of the table. I haven't really brought anything through the middle yet. I do have Gilded Legion, Ashen Dawn, Crimson Towers, like all of my heavy stuff, so he gets to see where I'm deploying before he commits the Dino, which I think is a great play. Alright, so the Militia attack the little mini dinos and pretty much wipe them out. Militia aren't very powerful, but neither are the little mini dinos, the Hunting Pack, so we are sort of swiping them out of the way here. Then we have the Thunder Chieftain showing up. Now, my opponent, unfortunately, his Thunder Riders have not shown up in the mail yet, so he's using a spare unit of Raptor Riders to proxy as them and represent them. So those Raptor Riders there are actually Thunder Riders, and they're showing up through the middle of the table. My Crimson Tower Knights then, seeing where the Thunder Riders are, decide to come over and help out in this flank. Now that I've wiped out the Hunting Pack, you can sort of see here that the Blooded, next turn, are only going to be in a position to attack the boys here. So that's the front of the Militia unit. If he wins the roll, the Blooded charge in and then could wipe out these guys here. If he loses the roll, I can literally charge through my own unit and clash these guys. So not clash them, impact hits them. So movement 7 gets me to about there, and then another 7 plus d6. If I get at least a 1, it will hit these guys. And with impact 4, brutal 2, and the character, the Blooded should be no problem. And with defense 4, I shouldn't take too much damage from their lethal demise. And that will leave me in a position where the priest can actually score. The dinosaur shouldn't be able to get to me immediately. Like the knight should have at least 1 turn to reform around. So I'm feeling like this sets up a really good play. So worst case scenario, the Blooded will come in first. They'll wipe out the Militia, and then I'll charge with the knights and kill them, and then score with the knights, and then force the dino to sort of divert his attention over to there. And that'll leave him with very few pieces on the other side of the table. So coming to this next turn, we have everything showing up except for the Ashen Dawn. Putting the Gilded Legion in there last because I want him to sort of commit his Thunder Riders a bit further before deploying the Gilded Legion right next to them. If I bring in the Gilded Legion a bit too quickly, then he might sort of reroute his attention and sort of plan around them a bit more effectively. I kind of want to bring them to surprise him. The first card, of course, is the Crimson Tower because of the strategy we just talked about, where they want to rush past the Militia and hit the Blooded. And then everything in between is just some sort of rational sequence that I could come up with. We're not going to go through that too much, but zooming out, this is before the Supremacy roll is made, so let's just do a little bit of commentary here. So you've got the Imperial Officer, he's facing the wrong way, but with liquid formation he can easily turn around and shoot at the Thunder Riders here. I've got nothing controlling the objective because these guys are light, but they are now screening against the Thunder Riders, so what's really useful here is that if these guys come in here and wipe out the crossbowmen, Then I've got a couple of other units there that potentially lock them up. The Swordsman could maybe go in there, and eventually the Ashen Dawn of the Guild Legion will come up to deal with that. These guys are kind of having a bit of fight that nobody is really in control of yet, but at least they're engaged. If I win the Supremacy roll, the Crimson Tower going first into the Blooded, they will capture this objective and force the Dinosaur to come over. And I still have, of course, a Priest with Servite and Elysian Fragment, so that might be able to beat the Dinosaur up pretty badly. On this side, the Blooded will be attacking the Swordsman, but as you can see, I've rigged it so that they can't really get that many stands into base contact. These guys will be Defense 4 and Relentless Drill, and they'll have a Mage there as well, so that should be really useful. And he's got a couple of Raptor Riders here, but I'm not too worried about them. They can't do too much damage yet. And I've got my 2 big mega units left to show up. Okay, so my opponent wins Supremacy. The Blooded charge into the Militia and absolutely trash them. They wiped them out. No contest there. The Crimson Tower then respond in kind by charging the Blooded. They get their Brutal Impact hits and their Clash, which unfortunately does a lot of lethal demise damage. And I think because these knights are so friggin' flimsy and terrible, I probably lost 1 knight from that. The Hunters then activate and launch a barrage into my Hunter Cadre, who take a bunch of wounds, and there's only a couple stands left on my side. I then respond with the Hunter Cadre, and they shoot back, inflicting a little bit more damage onto the Hunters, so continuing to whittle away each other, blood splattering the ground, and the screams of the injured filling the air. It's not very nice. The Raptor Riders charge into the Militia Bowmen, the Mercenary Bowmen, I should say, and do a whole bunch of damage to them, leaving them with like 1 stand. We then have the Mage who's shooting a fireball at the Blooded, or possibly this may have been the Men-at-Arms just reforming a bit, getting Bastion and pulling back. I can't quite remember what the play was. Either way, the Blooded do charge in, and they are able to get all of their stands in contact. I had actually moved back slightly is what I did, because I just wanted to put him in a situation where he might potentially fail the charge, but he did pass. So despite my planning earlier, I wanted to get the Mage into a position where she could shoot the fireball, and to do that I had to sort of expose my frontage a bit more. So he did get everybody in, but they have plenty of defense, so they did quite well to defend. I may not be remembering this part of the bat rep right. What may well have happened here is that he may have actually marched and then charged without clashing. I can't 100% remember, because the boys had already activated. At any rate, the militia, the mercenaries rally, and they've got 1 wound left, and they try to swing at the Raptor Riders, but they do nothing. Over here, the Chosen of Conquest show up, and these guys are showing up opposite the Crimson Tower Knight, so way off into the corner. I felt like he might have needed to support the Thunder Chieftain a bit more closely, but he decided, because they're such a fast unit, they can get across, beat up the Crimson Tower Knights, and then race across the battlefield very quickly. So that is the strat there, because they are so fast because of that Tier 3 Conquest chant. And Conquest is about movement shenanigans. That's what that song is all about. So over here, the Rangers use liquid formation to turn around. They unleash an ungodly barrage of arrows into the Raptor Riders. Bear in mind that the Imperial Officer also has a gun, so that completely removes them, leaving me with 1 stand of militia, mercenaries, who cannot score because they're light. We then have the Mage over here, who's able to launch some sort of fireball into our friendly Chosen over here. What are these guys called? Blooded is what I'm thinking of. So she's looking pretty cool. What do you guys think of my little retinue that I put together? So just to explain this is the classic Parabellum Mage. This is a Household Guard body with the Imperial Officer's arms and the new Founders exclusive St. George and the Dragon alternate head, which is why it looks like an Ashen Dawn head, but it's not. This is a Servite who normally belongs in the militia, and this is a 3D printed model I got off Etsy. So I've got a nice little retinue which I can use for the Mage or for the Priest. And this guy could be Order of the Sword Officer or an Imperial Officer. He can double as quite a few different things. Over here, so we have some Knights, and we also have a T-Rex, and we have some Chosen. They do want to use their Blessed ability from the Supremacy, but they can't really do much else. I believe that this turn was just finishing off the Blooded. I can't quite remember what really happened there. But the dinosaur charges them and does a colossal amount of damage because he's got, big sharp teeth, and the knights are really flimsy and they're not very good in defense, so pretty much crumbling and losing the unit over a couple of turns. Over here, the Thunder Riders feel like they just don't really have a good charge target because I've just swamped this part of the board with so many light units, and you don't want to really throw away your Thunder Riders into some light unit only to get charged by something else. So he's just carefully moving forward. So he's just touching this zone, edge of this zone with one of them. So if you can imagine the zone being around about like that, he's just tiptoeing into one edge of it. This unit is not scoring, and the mediums over here are tied up. And to get the officer into the zone, well, he's going to be threatened by the Thunder Riders if that happens. So has to be careful. Now, seeing that they have moved, the Gilded Legion appear and they show up behind the Rangers. The good thing about this is that I have the option of going liquid formation to turn around the Rangers and then running back behind the Gilded Legion, or I can just use them as a screen and the Gilded Legion then charge the Thunder Riders after I've sacrificed my Rangers, which is another way to do it. The Gilded Legion, they don't really want to get charged by the Thunder Riders because even though Pike formation will turn off Inspired, it will turn off Shock, and most importantly, it'll subtract 3 from the impact hits. The cleave that will come out of the Thunder Riders and the trample hits will still do a wad of damage, and they are fanatics with tier 3 war most of the time, so they'll have a bunch of perks. I don't really want to take the brunt of that. I'd really kind of prefer to be attacking, actively with the Gilded Legion if I can afford to. So, with that in mind, the crossbowmen just trying to get in the way of the Thunder Riders, and then we move to the next turn. So, Gilded Legion definitely going last because I'm just going to try and put everything in the way to limit his actions for the Thunder Riders. I know that he has fewer cards, so I'll definitely get to avoid the Thunder Riders until it's time for me to move in there with the Gilded Legion. The Ashen Dawn will be appearing. We'll figure out where he is before I place that. But the first unit is the Crimson Tower because they haven't been killed yet and they just need a chance to kill the dinosaurs. So looking out with a zoomed out photo at the start of the next turn, on the left you can see the T-Rex fighting the Crimson Towers. I've got 2 guys plus the Priority Commander. They're probably not going to kill him, but I do need to win the roll. These guys still shooting each other, that's no big deal because the Ashen Dawn are going to be showing up about here later on. These guys just need to get in the way of the Thunder Riders, then these guys need to get in the way, we just need to keep shooting them until they lose a stand, and then these guys can move in and finish them off. He's only got a couple of stands there of Blooded, so the Men-at-Arms should be able to beat them off eventually, and then turn around to fire fireballs at the Thunder Riders there. So, things going to a plan in general. Here we go. So, the Hunters are shooting at the Hunter Cadre. This time they do way more damage, and the Hunter Cadre actually take a bunch of damage, and I think I almost lose them. Then we have the Crimson Towers whacking away at the big T-Rex, but not really doing much damage, because they're more about charging. They're not great once they're already in the combat. The Men-at-Arms fighting away at the Blooded, causing some lethal demise, of course, but they have Bastions, so they are able to shrug most of it off and eventually cut them down. Over here, the T-Rex just ripping into them with the sharp teeth and, arms and legs going flying here, and the munching sounds ensue. Over the side, we have the Rangers just moving up a little bit to volley the Thunder Riders, and they're just making sure that the front of their bases are 6 inches away from the front of the Gilded Legion's bases, because that means that if all the stuff gets wiped out, then the Gilded Legion can still charge without failing, because that's 5 plus D6. Even if I roll a 1, they'll get into close combat, and then I can attack with my Drill Master. So all the 3 front stands have 5 attacks plus the leader, and then the back 3 have Relentless Drill for another 9. So that'll be 24 attacks at Cleave 1. He does not have Hardened. He may have the War Chant, though, which could be painful, but with 24 attacks and effectively Clash 4, you can expect him to lose 1 or 2 Thunder Riders, and that's all I really need to do. So, the Blooded attacking back with the last stand, still locked in combat here with these Men-at-Arms. These guys actually moving in the way of the Thunder Riders now, so this little unit will slow them down from 1 more turn. Pro tip, one thing that you should not do against a unit like this is to tie them up in close combat, because that means that they can use their first action to clash, which will kill you, and then they can charge, which will allow them to do impact hits and trample. So never allow the Thunder Riders to do that. You want to move like one guy right up next to them without touching them. It's different if you face like the Cataphractoi from Old Dominion, because they may have a Hetairos, which means they charge you, overrun you, then they can charge again something behind it. So with the Cataphracts, you do want to tie them in close combat, because then they don't do their impact hits from the outset and they can't use the Hetairos ability overrun. Alright, so the Chosen are continuing to rush through, and they're going to be able to wipe out the Crimson Tower Knights and score some points. Over here, we have the Thunder Riders bashing up the mercenaries. Not much else they can do, and they're in a lot of trouble now. So over here, the Ashen Dawn just moving through to deal with the Hunters before they get into the side of the Gilded Legion. It's quite important, this, because one thing that could ruin my plans is that if the Hunters locked in with the Gilded Legion, you can see in the background, then that stops them from dealing with the Thunder Riders, and then he can just wipe out this unit and then charge. But with the way I've got things set up here, the Ashen Dawn are now blocking the path to these guys, so they're going to die very shortly. The Rangers are going to be blocking the path to the Gilded Legion, so I do have enough screening units to make the magic happen. There it is there. Also, because this is the end of the turn and I'm not yet ready to charge, I decided to reform to make my stands 4 wide, just to get more frontage, because I've got 5 attacks in the front and 3 from the support, so better to have a wider frontage. And they're just moving directly behind the Rages, just to make absolutely sure that they can charge the Thunder Riders in the next turn. So we have here the Gilded Legion going last. They don't need to go any earlier, and the Rangers going first, just because, you know, if I win the roll, at least I can get some shooting done. So you can see here that on the left-hand side, he has actually successfully won this side of the board, and he's now scoring, but he's only got 2 units left, and after I deal with those, it's going to be the T-Rex and the Chosen against my entire army. So that's pretty much game at this point. You've got these guys moving in and doing some shooting. The Ashen Dawn completely obliterating the Predator and the Hunters, as expected. They are now set up to charge the Thunder Riders in the flank if they even survive. The Men-at-Arms have finished to the Blooded, turning around to launch a fireball with the line of sight from the Mage into the Thunder Riders there, which they do. You can see the Mage in the bottom left and the Thunder Riders at the top right to fireball them. The Chosen just forming a little little square block, and just marching across the table very quickly, but you can see there's a bit of impassable terrain between them and the Ashen Dawn, so I'll at least have one turn to turn around and face them to defend them off. And the T-Rex kind of has to stay at home, because he's not scoring unless he leaves one scoring unit back there. So if he brings the T-Rex as well to try and beat me late game, he just won't get any of those points from that side of the table. The Thunder Riders have nothing else to do, so the Gilded Legion just charge them. The Thunder Riders have destroyed the Rangers at this point, so the Gilded Legion just charge through, and this time they have 21 plus 6. They have 27 attacks with Clash 4 and Cleave 1, so that's the end of the Thunder Riders. Just another gratuitous photo there, and that's pretty much the game. So a few interesting things that I learned from that. Gilded Legion are kind of cool, but again, in this situation, the Steel Legion would have done more damage, but the Gilded Legion are cheaper, so there is that. The Mage, I think that she's a pretty cool unit. The Men-at-Arms, I'm not really sure if I need as many of them. A lot of people just run the Mage with the crossbowman, but then you don't have a unit which can sort of like brick out part of the table and block it off. Crimson Tower Knights, extremely flimsy. Everybody that I've sort of heard from who's an experienced Hundred Kingdoms player is just saying at this point that they can't wait to drop them and take Sealed Temple instead. I'll be taking Order of the Sword, because I'll have some proxies for that. But I'm just hoping that Parabellum increase the cost of the Ashen Dawn slightly. I think 10 points would be good, but decrease the cost of the Crimson Tower Knights, because at the moment, people are looking at the army list builder and going, okay, I just need to take whatever is going to unlock the Ashen Dawn. Tournament players are taking the 2 units of 5, which is crazy, but like, how do you even deal with that? And the mainstay unit sort of becomes, you know, inconsequential, and that's not how the game should operate. You should have an interesting choice to make about which priority commander to take, which, you know, mainstay unit to take, and the Ashen Dawn shouldn't be in every single list, but they kind of are. So those need to be changed up a bit. I did encourage my opponent to use a bit more of the War Chant, which I think is a really good choice because it's very flexible and it allows you to sort of get your units in harm's way and survive a bit longer and then attack them in the following turn. But at tier 3 with Blessed, you can use it offensively as well with the rerolls. So I really do like War for a lot of the Wadroon choices there. And Mantle of the Devoted is also very strong. One final little tip that I thought I would sort of share with you guys, if I didn't already, is there was one point in the game where I spotted a really cool opportunity for my opponent, which I kind of wanted to talk about. So, whereabouts is it? Here we go here. So I'm just gonna dial this down a little bit. So this is a photo showing what happened at the end of, I think, turn 3 or 4. And in fact, this isn't actually the photo I wanted to show you. It's further back. It was somewhere around here. It's to do with the hunting pack and their interaction with these guys. So here's the message. I've set up a situation where these guys have +1 defense, and if these guys come in the front, they'll take out a couple of stands, but then I'll wipe them out. What if you use liquid formation to create a formation where you're essentially 2 wide and 1 deep, like this? So that's the new formation for the hunting pack. And then just march them directly over here and facing the wrong way. What that would mean is that the militia can't actually deal with them unless they reform and then charge, which means they can't attack that turn. They then expose themselves to being charged in the flank by the blooded or even the hunters. So what happens the following turn is that if you win the roll, the blooded come directly in, wipe out the militia, and you still have a unit of hunting pack, and you still have a unit of blooded, right? But if you win the roll, these guys then reform into 3 deep, and they charge the militia through that side, because liquid formation allows them to do that before they activate, or before they charge. And that way you've got something like 18 attacks with rerolls from Opportunist. And in the flank with a rerolled morale and not using shields, they would have wiped this unit out completely. So I saw that play, and I was glad my opponent didn't think of it at the time. But it's just a bit of a lesson there when you have a unit with liquid formation. You may hear so many people saying that that rule is absolutely awesome, one of the best rules in the game. And it's because of all these little nuances and tactics and ideas that you can get out of it once you sort of discover the game a bit more and the potential that it has. So if you find yourself in that situation and you have a liquid formation unit and it's very fast, try doing that. Try running directly to the side of the enemy unit where they don't have line of sight to you and just leaving them until next turn, because then once you draw the card, you can turn them around for free and charge their flank. And it's even better if you have another unit waiting in the wings to deal with your opponent if he tries to reform to you. The only way that they can really successfully deal with that is if they have liquid formation themselves, or if they have impact hits, like they turn around and impact hits onto the little beasties. But even then, they're exposing a flank to your other unit which follows up. So bit of a little lesson there for you if you play one of these units like Raptor Riders Hunting Pack or anything else that has that sort of rule. But for now, I hope you guys enjoyed this game. I'll be back later this week with 100 Kingdoms versus Spires from the second half of the game day. But in the meantime, leave me a comment and don't forget to subscribe.